we jump in to being a cruise ship performer and what that entails and how one gets into the field, do you mind giving us a little backstory on who you are and how you got to where you are now?
Sure. So I grew up dancing and singing ever since I was a wee young child. My first ever singing experience was when my parents put me in this talent show and I sung Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And they were like, "Oh, that girl could like hit those notes. Like she's not tone deaf." So they were like, "Great, like we think she could sing." And then I like couldn't stand still, so they always put me in dance lessons my whole life. So I was dancing since I was 3, and then I got into theater, like musical theater in middle school, where my first show ever was like 101 Dalmatians, and I was like third dog from the left poodle. So I did that.
It's a very important role.
Yeah, very important role. Like rough,
small role.
Rough.
Yeah.
No small role.
I was a tree once, okay, and I stood.
Yes,
tall.
you were. So then after that, in high school, I did musical theater, and then from there, I went on to get my BFA in musical theater at the University of Tampa. And then it's just kind of been like a whirlwind since then. I've just loved storytelling, and I think theater and musical theater is so important, and just how it represents today and how it can affect one person in the audience. I think it's just such a beautiful art form. So yeah, that's my love for it and my background.
For people that want to get into cruise ship performing specifically, do you suggest a higher education?
No, actually. I know a lot of cruise ship performers. Like my first contract was out of college with Norwegian Cruise Line, but I met a lot of people during rehearsals that were 18. Dancers were 18 years old. I think you have to be at least 18 to audition, but I know a lot of people that didn't go to college and just have, that raw talent that they're like, I'm ready, I want to travel the world. So they didn't need to go to school. A lot of dancers actually like that I've met, like don't go to college because they just want to start their career immediately,
If somebody was going to take the college route, what extracurricular activities or classes do you suggest one takes? And if they choose not to take the college route, do you suggest them taking any special classes before jumping into cruise ship performance?
Honestly, like I kind of learned it on my way, but I think most importantly is just, you have so much fun. So if you have like a fun time performing and entertaining people, a lot of the cruise ships, like they're cruise ship shows that are centered around like 70s music, or it's centered around like a jazz era, or it's centered around like 80s pop rock. Like they have all these different types of genres. And I think if you really enjoy like being like a superstar and singing and having like your spotlight and like moving around on stage and having like your backup, like your dancers all around you, yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's necessarily like a class for that, but I think just loving to perform and like continuously like getting vocal training, like of course taking care of your voice and like being in those dance classes. I think being a triple threat in the business is important, regardless of if you're like a mover or a full on like dancer. But yeah.
Wait, can you, for those of us who are not in this space, what's a triple threat? Like, can you kind of walk me through that?
Yes. Okay. So a triple threat, we like to say, like you can sing, act, and dance. So like you are just fierce at all three, and like you can go to the dance call and be like fierce, and then you can go to the singer call and also be fierce, and then you're obviously acting through both of those. But yeah.
Nice. So are you a triple threat? Yeah, look at that. Yeah. Yes, you are.
Yes, I am. Yes.
As an audience member of Brie, I can confidently say yes, she is.
I knew the answer before I asked it. So what if I'm totally new and I just have this passion for performance and for musical theater? How do I start building my contacts? Like, how do I put a resume together? Like, I wouldn't even know where to start with something like that.
Yeah. So with resumes, honestly, it took me so long to get like a resume that felt right.
Yeah.
But honestly, in my in my training and stuff, we just put like every type of show that we've been in, or if you haven't been in a show, I mean, building contacts like in the cruise ship industry, like sending them self tapes, like sending them videos of you singing, sending them videos, and just emails, like contacting them, sending them, like start with getting a headshot first, like get a headshot, prepare that, and then from there, if you haven't been in any shows and you just love to sing and you are just an amazing singer, make some self tapes and start off doing that, because like they love that. They love powerhouse singers, and that's something they look for sure. And you don't have to have some like elegant resume saying all of these shows that you've been in. It really doesn't matter. They look for talent, and that's their main priority.
So what would go into one of those self tapes? Like, do I just like take my phone and film myself, or really?
Literally, yeah. I mean, for a self tape, like if you want to have, I mean, what I've learned since being in quarantine, since we have to send self tapes a lot of the time now, having good lighting is really, really, really good for the self tape, and then also having it like placed with a neutral background, like if you're behind like a white wall or just very like neutral background, and then having your background track be like not super loud in the back, so you're able to hear the voice over it. But yeah, I mean, it's easy once you get the hang of it, and once you figure out like what works for you, and you're able to do multiple takes to fit what you want and fit your standard of what you're going to send in.
Someone loves performance. They're excited to send in some self-tapes. Where exactly do they go for that contact?
Well, I self-taped and sent in my stuff. They have their emails and everything on their website. So for example, I did Norwegian Cruise Line. And my first ever self-tape was to Kai Carrier, and their emails and all their self-tape submissions, they have that contact on there for you. So even if you're not in the business or you have no idea like where to start, you can immediately go there and click on that, and all the information is given to you, which is super nice, because usually that's not feasible for us as actors to get those types of contacts just from the website.
Yes.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like you necessarily need an agent or a manager. You just have to be confident in your talent and your passion.
Definitely. I didn't have an agent then. I submitted by myself and auditioned for them by sending in self-tapes, and then I met with them in New York as well for my second time around when I was in Jersey Boys. But yeah, you don't need an agent. You definitely just need the passion and the talent, honestly.
If it's just straight acting, do they have a career in cruise ships, or is it strictly for musical theater?
Honestly, I haven't seen a lot of straight plays on. I've actually never seen a straight play. It's mostly like driven by music, and it's mostly driven by dance, or what, because they have a lot of musicals, like a lot of Broadway musicals on the cruise ships, which is really cool. But I've never seen a straight play, but I think that'd be really cool for them to add. But unfortunately, I don't think so, unless they wanted to become like a guest entertainer, and they wanted to do that type of side gig, because that's an incredible line of work as well.
What is that? What does that mean, a guest entertainer?
So a guest entertainer is someone that just comes on the ship like for like a few days, and they have two shows, so they do one 8:30 and one 10:30. At least this is with my experience with my ship. They come on for a few days, they do the show that they submitted to the casting, and then that's it, and then they just leave. So they're only there for a few days, like rather than us, like we're there for 6 to 8 months, and they're only there for like a few days, and then they jump to their next ship to guest entertain at.
Like a small little cameo that they bring.
Yeah. But it's honestly the tea with the cruise ship performing. Like I really want to do that. I want to make my own show and like just go on ships for a couple of days. Like it's amazing what they do. Like they have the life, honey. They are living that guest luxurious life. I'm like, wow. I'm like, let me live your life, honey. Get me out of this like 3x6 cabin up in here, literally.
You're like, I'm ready to bring my rolling show out.
Right. Like, I'm ready for my boa. Like, let's go.
Is it different for cruise ship auditioning than it is for any other platform?
Honestly, in my experience, no. A lot of the time, like, I've experienced singing just a 32-bar pop rock song for a lot of people that were Broadway and cruise ship. And even for like shows like Jersey Boys, are like so many Broadway shows are all requiring a pop rock song. Like that's their big thing now. And that correlates so well with cruise ships because they want a pop song as well. But auditioning for cruise ships versus Broadway or regional theaters, honestly, the audition room is the exact same. It's very professional. It's very, I've never had an experience where any of them have been like different or like unprofessional or like one's better than the other or whatever.
Additional to just sending in your stuff, would we call that an open call?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They have open calls all the time. I know for Norwegian, for sure, has open calls, and they travel around to cities all over the world to audition for their performers. So they have open calls constantly, which is really great because it gives performers more opportunities, and you don't have to have an agent to get you in there, which is really great.
Yes. It's great that you have that freedom.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned that you have to have like a pop rock song. What kind of song would that be? Like what's an example?
Yeah, so my go-to right now is Magic Man. That's like been my go-to pop rock song. But honestly, like anything, like you can sing like Lady Gaga if you want, you can sing Katy Perry, like anybody that you feel like fits your vocal range and just honestly like suits you the best. Like you have such a range. Like pop rock is so broad. You can really stem it from anywhere in the spectrum, but that's my go-to. It literally still is my go-to 2 years later. So she needs new material.
While you're on the ship, like what would a typical day look like for you?
So we would just like hang out until we would just like go around the ship, eat, and then we would wait until our show would start at like 8:30. So we had a very like nice life. Like it was just, we would travel and then get off the ship and then come back on and then perform, and that was it.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were able to do like the cruise ship activities during the day, right?
Yeah, it was nice being a performer because you definitely got like really nice privileges on the ship, which was nice. You got to basically do everything that the guests could do other than like a few things. Like you had to dress a certain way, like you couldn't roll up in sweatpants and be in guest area in sweatpants. So there was like some rules about how like dress code, and we had like a curfew as well on the ship. But other than that, I mean, it wasn't super strict rules.
What was the dress code?
So most of the time, like we weren't allowed to wear jeans. That was like one of the things that I hated because I had so many jeans, but it was fun. But we mostly just had to look presentable. Like we couldn't roll out of bed and just like walk around in like sweatpants or whatever. We had to like dress nice. We had to look presentable every single day. Like if we were in the guest eye, we had to like business casual, I would say, like business casual every day, and then at nighttime was formal. Like not super formal, but like most of the time, like the girls wore dresses or we wore like fancier clothing with heels. So it wasn't like ball gowns or anything, but some people did wear ball gowns sometimes.
When it came to your costumes, props, and accessories, did you have, or on a cruise ship, do you have stagehands and stage managers? Or are you responsible for your makeup, your clothing, your props?
My first ship with Norwegian, it was a smaller ship. So we had a stage manager, but we were in charge of all the props and we were in charge backstage because there's only 6 of us in the cast. So we had to do everything ourselves. We even had like one of our team members was the costume person. So if any of our costumes got ripped or anything like that, she would be the one to sew them back on. But when I was in Jersey Boys, so Jersey Boys was one of their Broadway series shows, and that was like a mega ship. So we had backstage hands, we had backstage crew, we had a whole costume department. We had like basically anything you would have on Broadway, they had on the ship. So that was a totally different experience, for sure.
So this is kind of a personal question, but like, I feel like we're here.
We're here. We're at the personal.
I feel like we've made it there. Can you sustain yourself financially while you're working on or for the ship? Like, do they cover your room and board and food? Is there anything that you're responsible for financially while you're on the ship?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is not personal at all. Feel free to ask me those questions. No, they pay for everything. So the only thing that you need to pay for is alcohol, but they give you a percentage off of all of that, and they give you a percentage off of basically anything that you buy on the ship, like in the retail stores that they have on board. They pay you extremely well. Like that is one of the big reasons why people perform on cruise ships, not only because they love it, but the paycheck is incredibly sustainable. It's actually overly sustainable, and you save so much money because you're not paying for room, you're not paying anything when you're living there. And you can honestly, if you actually really want to save, you can go without buying any of the extra, amenities that they provide. Like you can go without buying alcohol. Like I knew someone on my cruise contract that saved he never spent a dime on alcohol. He never spent a dime on like Starbucks or anything. He was so good. And I think he saved over like $50,000 or $60,000 in those 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. But like,
so
amazing.
Yeah. We talked about dress code. Do they limit your alcohol consumption as well, or do they monitor it?
Yes. Okay, so they do. So their rule is when you're on duty, I think when you're on duty, it has to be like 0.02. And when you're off duty, I think it's like 0.06. If you're super like drunk on the ship and you do something really dumb, and the security on the ship like catches you, they can breathalyze you and you can get a warning, or you could like worse get fired.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
If someone gets fired,
yeah.
Oh my God, did they just leave you somewhere?
Does a helicopter come pick them up at the next location? Or do they just like start partying the rest of the ship's way and they have to just pay their way now? Or like what happens?
Or are they just like, well, we're close to Thailand. Bye.
Right. Oh my gosh. Actually, my one friend on my first cruise ship, she got fired. I'm about to spill the tea. She literally got fired. She got fired the day. So her mom was on and she had no idea, but the cruise director was like, hey, I need to see you before we dock today. So we were about to dock. It was like 3 hours before we got to the dock. And she was like, okay, that's weird. And she was calling me. She was like, I don't know what's going on. She got fired and they told her, they were like, you have 2 hours to pack. Like there's going to be security like by your door. You have to pack. We're so mad. Like our whole team was just like infuriated because not only were we only had 6 people. So when she left, I was the only female singer. So I had to cover everything that she did in the show, which is like a lot, like doing my stuff and her stuff. It's only 2 of us, and the shows are an hour. So like, basically, I mean, it was just a lot.
Did you get paid more then since you were covering 2 people?
No, that was another big thing too, because it was like in my contract, like they put this in everybody's contract, like you have to fully like abide by like if something happens, like you need to cover that role, blah, blah, blah. It was just a mess. It was a mess. My second cruise contract was incredible. Like and the first one was incredible too, but it was just like a lot more like crazy things that happened.
At least you got
It's
all
like a
those
lot
great
of drama.
experiences.
Yeah.
You learned
Yeah.
so much your very
Drama.
first round, so you were
Yeah.
more of an expert going on after that. You were like, oh, you need me to cover more? you
Like,
want
girl,
to cover a ball?
right. Literally, you're like, all right, got it, girl, got it. Like, so it
So
was.
how long would one of those contracts be? Like, how many days were you at sea?
So my first contract was 8 months on the ship. And then my second contract was 1 month of rehearsals. So that first contract was 9 months total because you had 1 month in rehearsals. And then my second contract was 1 month of rehearsals and 6 months on the ship. So like 7 months total.
Before an audition, do you know how many months you will be gone before even auditioning for the cruise ship? Or you don't have that contract in front of you, you don't know how long you'll be on until you get it?
Yeah, sometimes the contracts are shorter. Like my second one was like 6 months total. Like they usually start around 6 months. I know with Norwegian they start with 6 months, but I know Royal Caribbean are like for a full year. And that's usually like everybody pretty much knows like you're about to be on the ship for a year. Because they have 2 months of rehearsals and then they have like 10 months on board, which takes up the entirety of the year. But yeah, mostly cruise ships are usually range from like 6 to 8 months, I would say.
What happens if you have a family or something? Can they visit you?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was another thing that I loved because you could bring family on board. You could you have a lot of privileges. Which is really nice. I know a lot of like the guy that played Jip, which is the older guy in Jersey Boys, he had a wife and a kid, like a baby, and they were able to come on and stay in his cabin, and it was nice. You can do an in-cabin comp, and they don't have to pay for anything other than like $10 a day, which is amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Or you can sign someone on and they can get their own cabin, but it's at a very much cheaper rate than it would be if they came on at a normal time.
If you and your family decided to go on, like your husband and your wife and your child, could that person upgrade their room so they're not, because you're below the deck, correct?
No. So I know that's definitely a myth, like the crew's in the waters, but that's not true. I mean, some people are below. Like I was on the 7th floor for my second contract and I was in midship for my first contract. So there are multiple levels.
But you wouldn't be able to upgrade I'm being extreme, but say they want to get a suite. Could they get a suite? Is there a limit on what they're able to upgrade to?
No, not at all. If you bring family on?
Yeah.
Not at all. When my parents came on my first ship, they upgraded to the really nice thing because they were able to, because I worked on the ship and they were she works here. And the other crew members are really, really sweet, especially when your family comes on. They're so nice and they really go out of their way to make the experience for them really enjoyable, just because they know the crew becomes a family. You make so many friends with so many different departments and it's really incredible.
When it comes to training, are you training physically? Are you under contract to look a certain way physically? And then if you are, how do you execute your training? Do you get a trainer? Does the cruise ship provide one? Or do you figure out your own workouts?
A lot of cruise ships do this, so I'm just going to talk about it, but a lot of them do weigh-ins, and you can't be 5 pounds over and you can't be 5 pounds under. However, with that comes they do take into account if you're going to the gym, if you're building muscle, they definitely take those into account. And even if you do go over 5 pounds, they're okay, we're gonna monitor you and make sure that you're not getting weight, because they don't want you to burst your costumes. That's the big thing, is they just don't want to remake all these costumes that cost a lot of money. Do I stand by the weigh-ins? No. I didn't like them and I don't think they're healthy, to be honest. But all of us in general, we all go to the gym and everybody usually takes care of themselves, just because you are a performer, this is what you have, this is what you need to treat your body as a temple.
So you didn't have a trainer. Did you have a nutritionist, or did you put yourself on a particular meal? I'm going to say meal plan instead of diet.
Yeah. No, not really. So we didn't have a nutritionist, but we just, I mean, it was just like holding yourself accountable. Like food on the ship is very, very much at your service, like any time of the day. So just like eating healthy and going to the options that you should go to instead of, eating a bunch of crap all the time, which balanced for me. Like I had so much dessert and I was fine because it was like all in moderation. But yeah, it was just kind of like eat healthy, like do your thing, and whatever works for you and whatever works for your body.
When it comes to caring for your body and you are on a cruise ship, can you take advantage of getting massages, or could you get acupuncture or work with a chiropractor? Were those possibilities for you?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a whole spa on board, and when I was in Jersey Boys, every week they had a spa night. So all the crew could go up to the spa. They could enjoy like these really cool, like hot, like stone beds. They were sick, and you can go in the steam room. You can go in their hot tub. You can just kind of like enjoy their area. And if you wanted a massage, you could get one. You would have to pay for it. Like that's one of the things that you would have to pay for, but you do get a percentage off. I think you get like 40 to 60% off. Self-care is so important. I don't think some people realize how important it is, regardless if you're a performer or not. Like self-care is like the top tip,
And we talked a lot about like physical preparation, training your body, your diet. What about training your mind? Do you have any tips for mental and emotional preparation?
Yeah, like getting ready for like performances, or like just in general, like being on the cruise ship?
So I guess there's two paths. So one, do you have any sort of mental or emotional prep, like meditation or mantras that you do before a performance? And then two, now that we're in quarantine, thinking about it, like, do you have any advice for someone who's on a ship for that long for how to kind of stay sane and like stay in the right mental state?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one for me is I always go back to my faith. Like Jesus is like everything to me. So having a relationship with him, like that's been my go-to for keeping me calm, for getting me through storms. And another thing that's super important is surrounding yourself with people that uplift you and support you and are positive. That was like the key thing for me. I think being who you surround yourself with, I think is so important. Do not surround yourself with someone that is going to tear you down or put you in a toxic mental state. I think that is so important, even off the ship. So definitely surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up just as much as you lift them up, and just support you and being positive.
Yeah. Do you ever get stage fright? Is there anything that you tell yourself kind of before, during, after a show that keeps your mind in the right place?
Yeah, I always get like major like butterflies, like always. I honestly have never not had it. Even like before auditions, like I'll get like these major butterflies, and I'll just take the deepest breath, and I always say the verse, like I can do anything within Christ who strengthens me. So whenever I feel like those nerves coming on, I'm just like, okay, like I'm here for a reason. Like I'm just gonna do this. I have nothing to lose. Like fear, like you can take your step like out the door. And that's how I always go forward and just like let it go.
When you're on stage, you're in the moment of acting and dancing performance, and you find yourself having an out-of-body experience. If that happens, how do you center yourself back in that moment?
Oh my gosh, I've definitely had those experiences, and like I definitely like mess up too when I have those experiences, like full on, like I'm just like whoa. I think the adrenaline when you're on stage is like so, it's so hard to explain, but you really just like have to keep going, like regardless of what you stumble over or like whatever bump you're about to hit. Like when you're having that out of body experience, you just have to keep going and you'll get back into it. But the adrenaline and like knowing people are watching you definitely helps for sure. And it helps keep me grounded as well.
So if you had kind of 5 key takeaways for someone who wanted to get into cruise ship performing, what would those 5 lessons be?
One, definitely start first of all, get a headshot for sure. If you're new to the business and if you're a good singer and you want to like go perform, definitely start with getting some headshots, and just kind of like looking up resumes and things like that, where you can start with that. If you don't have a lot, that's also okay. I think start building what makes you you. Like, what are you selling to these people? You know what I mean? Like, what makes you you, and how can you present that in the audition room? Like, when you walk in, you want them to be like, I like her energy, and that's super important. Like, come in, just be yourself, and know who that is. I think definitely finding songs that fit your voice type and fit like every time you go into a room, you just want to be like, I can knock this out of the park. You don't want to have any question of like, oh, like am I gonna do that? Like, you don't want to go in with already fear. You know what I mean? Because you're already going to be nervous. So just let that go and know that you can kill it, and just get yourself some repertoire that fits your vocal type. And just, I don't know, like, start making self-tapes, start taping yourself and singing. Reach out to those people that are in the cruise ship. They have their websites, they have all of their audition listings all on their websites. So, get a journal, get a planner, and just like write down the contacts and start emailing them your self-tapes, and just like getting them to see your face. You know what I mean? Like, you just want them to see your face so they can keep you in mind for future contracts or auditions or something. And yeah, and just do it. Like, if you want to be a performer on a cruise ship, like do it. It's amazing. You're gonna have so much fun. It's an incredible experience that I would never ever regret for the world. It was even though through all the stuff that I went on my first contract, like, it was amazing. It was still amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. This was phenomenal.
Thank you. Sorry for all the mess ups.
No, Bree, it's always wonderful having you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Of course. Thank you guys for having me. This was so fun, so funny.
Thank you, Bree.